good to see everybody, and missed being with everybody. So we are going to be in session every Monday now until 4th of July holiday. So let's get my PowerPoint working right here. So today we are going to talk about what is personal growth. And as always, feel free to chat in, questions, comments, curiosities, observations. And so I thought this would be good topic because, there's a lot out there now about what personal growth is and all that. And so I thought it would be helpful maybe to kind of just put it into some context. And first of all, talk about, well, how do we demystify what personal growth is, right? And, from my point of view, personal growth is when we live in a constant state of lifelong curiosity, where we are never the expert and we are always the learner. Where we're never the expert and we're always the learner, and we're always living in curiosity. Okay, and I think a lot of times people look at personal growth. I think it gets characterized as kind of like these big moments, right? And I don't know if any of you are familiar with this image, but my oldest daughter and I, one of our favorite movies is Monty Python's Search for the Holy Grail. And if you know the movie, all of a sudden the sky opens up and, here's this figure, speaking to King Arthur, in this moment. And it's like, maybe it comes that way, but not often. Personal growth really comes a little bit at a time. One learning at a time, one experience at a time, one moment at a time. One experience, and where all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's what that meant, even though you might have had that experience 100 times before, right? And so I think, helping to demystify, personal growth as, coming in big chunks, and it can come in big chunks. Mostly though, it's a little bit like a football game, 1 yard at a time. And then what happens over time is that we get kind of an accumulation of knowledge. And the more we understand, the more we realize how little we know. And so as we're in a learning process, the more we understand in the learning process, it's kind of a remarkable feeling when you kind of realize that the more knowledge you gain, the more you understand that you're never going to know all of it, which probably seems like common sense. But that actually, the deeper your knowledge is, the more you realize how much more there is to learn. Not have to learn, but how much more there is to learn. And that's one of the things that I know, like on my personal journey, that I've always been super fascinated with. Is it's kind of, one thing leads to another, and some of you might know this, but I'm an amateur historian. And so, I just always curious about history. And so I'll read about one historical event. And then all of a sudden I'll read something, and then I'll be in studying something. And then all of a sudden, like, well, I didn't know that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I got to go research that, right? Whatever that event is. And it keeps going and going and going. And, for me, that's one of the things about the mystery that I love so much, is that the more we learn, the deeper we go into learning, and the deeper we go into curiosity, what we realize is that there's an unlimited number of things that we can learn that add to our personal growth. And I think that's kind of where the fun is, because every day is like, oh, I didn't know that. Or, well, how's that happen? And that's kind of one of the things I like about history, is like, it's not the big stuff. It's not the big political things, or maybe the battlefield, details, or the meta part of the battles, right? It's really more all the little stuff. And I think really, as we're on our personal growth journeys, that's really what it's like, right? Well, how well, I reacted this way to that thing. Well, why is that? And I become more curious about that. And it's all part of this learning process where we're really truly, like, the more we learn, the less we know. And it's an oxymoron, right? And it is counterintuitive. You think, well, the more we learn, the more we know. It's like, well, yes, yes and no. It's a yes and. The more we learn, the more we realize how much there is yet to learn, which means how much we don't know. And I think that's the fascinating part about personal growth. It never ends. And if we think about it in terms of going, just a little bit at a time, right? Like if I use that football analogy, right? Just 1 yard at a time. And we're learning and we're learning. And what we're really doing is, each time we learn something, okay, it adds to our personal growth. And it's literally like adding a book to our personal library, if you can think about it that way. And if we think about it in terms of taking our experiences and kind of cataloging them, like you would in a library, okay, where, oh, right, I've had this experience before. I kind of know what this looks like. I'm going to go to this experience, okay, which is in this book. And I'm going to open it up and I'm going to find that page. And so we keep accumulating through our curiosity and through our willingness to learn and our willingness to not ever really be an expert, okay? And by doing that process, what happens is that every single day we're adding not just one book, multiple books to our personal library. And that's how we get personal growth. Every now and then, like I can remember the time this happened to me, like every now and then, you'll get a wham moment. You're like, oh, holy smokes, right? But that's kind of rare. And I think more often it's about understanding how each little moment that we have, each little perception, each little, when we're curious and we ask questions, they can be out loud or do yourself, right? I mean, probably mostly to yourself about, well, why is this that way? Or like that doesn't, like if you see something that doesn't make any sense to you, it's because you don't have all the information, right? And the deeper we go into that, then we're getting an answer, and those answers again, right? They add to our personal library. And that's one of the things I always find so fascinating about the process. And when we live in curiosity and we're never the expert, we're always the student. And it's a little bit like being an explorer every day, and you're exploring your personal world. And life becomes exhilarating when you get these new insights, because you're like, holy smokes, I didn't know that. Or wow, if I shifted my view, the way I handled this experience, the next time I have this experience, if I shift my orientation to it, I'm going to get an entirely different outcome. I'm going to try that. And like literally, you become an explorer in your world, because that's what we're here for. We're really, it's supposed to be messy. It's supposed to be maybe at times exhilarating, other times, maybe a little scary, right? But that's what we're here for. We're here to learn and to explore. And if we can tap into that insatiable curiosity, then we get more and more experiences. And those experiences, again, kind of add to our personal library we had in the previous slide. So, every day in this practice, we grow and change in ways that we might not notice until at some point we have a wow moment on a new realization or perspective. And I call that the creep of change. Things kind of creep up on us, and all of a sudden, we might be toiling with a topic or a project or whatever the case may be, and or something that we've worked on ourselves, and we've accumulated enough information through our through our curiosity and our willingness to not be an expert, to be a learner, and then all of a sudden one day you're like, oh, right, okay, I got it. And that's, I think, one of the really exciting parts about personal growth, is that you're always adding to it just a little bit at a time, and and you get what, again, like I like to call it the creep of change, right? Where in our personal lives, we can experience change a little bit at a time until all of a sudden it's like, hey, wait a minute, like I got a whole new perspective on this. So it's really fun stuff. And I think, again, of course, personal growth is, almost become like a movement and nowadays. And I think in some ways it puts pressure on people. Where that it puts pressure on people. We got to be doing this, you got to be doing that, you got to be having these big moments. And it's like, it doesn't really come that way. It's a workman's journey. Okay, you got to do the work. Okay, but you got to do it every day. It doesn't work as well if you do it like in chunks, right? So in our journey on personal growth, we always want to be in curiosity. We're never an expert, we're always a learner. And I think if we can follow those kind of guidelines, then the personal growth journey really can be a lot of fun. So just looking at some of the chats here. From Lucian, if you never read a book, you live one life. Yeah. If you read, you can live 1,000 lives. Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. It's always about looking at things from different perspectives. And I think it's, we all have our own biases, right? So we're all kind of trapped in our own story that we know. And if we consider ourselves an expert or, very knowledgeable about something, we can be knowledgeable and still be open to learning. We can be highly knowledgeable about something and still be curious about it. We have that ability to be both knowledgeable and still be a learner. And I kind of learned this, one of the deeper places I learned this is when we started doing a lot of merger and acquisition work. It goes back almost 30 years now. And I realized that I was never going to be that the only market, okay, that I'm an expert in is Keene, New Hampshire, the Monadnock region. Every other market, okay, is not an indigenous market to me. And so as an organization, we're always a learner in these other markets. So whether it's North Conway or Auburn, it doesn't matter where it is. You guys are the experts. And so, now we're experts on operations and things like that as an organization, but I will never know a market the way you guys do, right? Because you're the local experts. And so I'm always a learner. And that was when we first started growing the organization, that was one of the places where I really understood that no, you're always a student, and we're always a student of these markets that we've been so fortunate to be invited into. Is really how we look at it. So cool stuff. And I don't see any other chats. And next week, we're going to talk about the hero's journey. And the hero's journey, and you could look it up if you want, but the hero's journey is really about how we go through life and go through our kind of our trials and tribulations and our learnings, and how really we're all kind of heroic in how we do that. And so that's going to be a really fun topic. We'll get into some Joseph Campbell and how it relates to Star Wars, and it's a fun topic. And so I'm really looking forward to doing that. So if we don't have anything else, good to be with everybody, and have an amazing week. Take care.